the News Channel 5 network, this is MorningLine with Nick Beres.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on MorningLine. Nick Beres here on a Thursday, July 5th. I hope you enjoyed the 4th, had a good time, didn't have any problems with fireworks. Yeah, come on, look, we all heard them. All right, whether you stayed away from downtown, and 200,000 people did not, a big, fantastic fireworks show downtown Nashville again, but wherever you were in Middle Tennessee or wherever you happen to be watching us, you know people were blowing stuff off. I still managed to get a good night's rest. So anyway, I hope you joined us this morning. We're going to be talking politics, some of the big developments, among other things. Supreme Court nominee is going to be announced by the president on Monday. We'll see if he can keep the secret that long. He may tweet it out before then. You know how the president goes on that. A lot of other things coming into play, and I want to hear what you think. The number 737-7587. Just jump in as we hit some of these topics and share your thoughts with me and MTSU Professor John File. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
It's good to have you. Did you have a good 4th?
I did.
It was nice?
It was nice and cool in my den as I watched fireworks in 3 different cities.
Unreal heat, right?
Yes,
Just
yes,
turn on the TV and stay in. That's why I was amazed at how many people came down here.
There were a lot.
For the crowd and all the heat, and you know, a lot of them are drinking a bit down here. I'm amazed. I'm sorry. That to me would just be very uncomfortable. But they came and they put on a heck of a show.
Well, we have one of the best in the country.
We do. And so good for them, and that kept it going. You're writing a book on the 4th.
I'm writing a book on the Declaration of Independence, an encyclopedia.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be out in November. I have one coming out on the flag in October.
Okay.
And then one on the Independence Day in November.
Yeah,
so.
You write a lot, don't you?
I like to write.
Right. And so, wait. The flag just on the history or what? Or
yeah,
what
history,
about,
culture, songs, art.
Oh, okay.
You know, different styles of the flag, laws about the flag burning, flag desecration,
the whole
business.
Yeah, and then as far as independence, the other book just on what?
Yeah, it's on the deck. It's primarily on the document.
Okay. And
you know, we quote the first paragraph or two, and we forget that there's a whole list of 25 objections against the king. A lot of historical events connected with that, something about each of the signers of different states and that sort of thing.
Wow. Yeah, interesting. When do those books come out?
November and December. Or, I'm sorry, October and November, I believe.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, it's good to have you on with us this morning. We're going to talk politics, and I mentioned this, and there's a lot, and our viewers may be following this, and I invite them to join in the conversation. But let's just start with the Supreme Court nominee. Okay. It's going to be interesting here to see how this one plays out. I think Democrats were saying, hey, you remember what happened with President Obama's nominee that you put off, and you said, let's wait until after the election before we let. Fair enough, and now the Democrats are saying, let's wait until after the midterms, and that's not going to happen, apparently.
No,
and this president, this president has a right to go ahead and nominate.
Sure.
The question is, would Congress, like they did with President Obama, just kind of stonewall that and say, we're not going to do anything on it until after the new president's elected? The Democrats don't have the power to do that.
Right.
So
if you had a Democratic majority, there'd be no doubt that it would be postponed.
And that's why they wouldn't mind waiting, until after the midterm, because you never know how things will balance out after that.
Right.
But the idea is, if President Trump nominates on Monday, as he says, they'll move forward fairly quickly, I suppose, trying to confirm whoever it is.
He's been lucky. If you remember, Obama he technically had 3 nominations, but because they stole the one, he only got 2 nominations in an 8-year term. And Trump's going to get two within his first 2 years, basically. And you got particularly Ruth Bader Ginsburg probably hold on her fingernails as long as she can, but it's fairly old, and certainly a chance for her or another justice to retire between even the end of this first term.
Do you believe justices take politics into account when they decide to retire? I think you probably referenced that with Ginsburg. With Justice Kennedy, who's the one that's announced he's leaving, yes. I mean, I don't get the sense that he is very sick and just had to resign right now or step down.
No, that's right.
So do you imagine he's looking at it saying, all right, I don't know what's going to happen in the midterms, and I think he was never one that you looked at as being super conservative on the court. He was more one of those potential swing voters, but he could have waited until after the midterm to make his announcement, but he does it now because maybe he wants to make sure that the president's choice gets through.
Yeah, I mean, the irony is that Kennedy has a very different temperament from Donald Trump. You know, Kennedy, the reason he was the so-called swing vote, and he didn't like the term, but the reason for that was that he, you know, he was often right in the middle. You know, most 5-4 decisions over the last couple terms, he wrote them. And in that respect, he's a little bit like Justice Sandra Day O'Connor and Lewis Powell, who preceded her. There's often sort of this swing justice on the court. But, you know, he does lean conservative, and I think he does feel more, if I had to guess, my guess would be that he would have been even more comfortable with a Bush or a Romney or something like that. But, you know, one thing that Trump did, which is a little unique, and maybe we should give him credit for this, is he gave us a list before he was even elected of the justice or the people that he was going to consider for justices. And, you know, for the most part, they are, you know, they're people of distinction. Now they're conservatives, much more than probably Kennedy himself. But I think, you know, he feels a little bit more comfortable, say, with somebody on that list than he might say for an Elizabeth Warren or Hillary Clinton or whoever might be elected in the future. Okay, yeah, so that list is out there. The president probably has who this person is in mind right now. Well, he's interviewed, I think, already, what, 4 to 8 people. So yeah, he you know, this may in some ways be a charade. He may already know, but my guess is probably not. All right, so what type of battle can there be for the confirmation of this judge? As you know, there will be. Ultimately, though, is there any way the Democrats could stop it if they just objected? And by the way, the president has said during these conversations, he's not asking them specifically if they would overturn Roe v. Wade. And so the question is, obviously, a lot of people are thinking this could be something that could go to that, but he says he's not going to ask that. But if there's a battle, what can Democrats do to slow it down? Well, the most obvious would be if you found some kind of skeleton that nobody knew about. You know, you discover that somebody cheated through law school. So they're going to vet the heck out of whoever, and they always do. Sure. But especially here, meaning if there's anything dirt there that exists, no matter how good a candidate you might be, you have no chance. Right. So whoever he's going to nominate is going to have to be pretty darn squeaky clean. Right. Typically, you know, there usually, well, there have been public hearings for many, many years now in the Senate, and typically senators will try to ask, you know, well, what is your position on abortion, or what's your position on gun control? Right. And almost always they will say something to the effect, you know, I can give you my general philosophy, I can tell you what I think about precedents and so forth and so on, but I can't really, as a judge, tell you what I would do in any case that might be pending. And there's always a case pending on these matters. Okay. And, you know, the Senate will, I mean, they'll make a show of, you know, well, you're not being forthright and why won't you tell us? But neither side is going to tell you how they're going to vote. Okay. I think it's, you know, I think that sometimes there are writings by individuals that would give you a sense. But one of the fascinating things is particularly Republicans like to nominate sitting judges. And sitting judges have records, so you can, you know, look at. But one thing that we need to remember is that sometimes people act differently as a lower court judge than they do as a Supreme Court justice, because as a lower court judge, you're expected more typically to follow precedents, whereas at the Supreme Court, you realize, short of a constitutional amendment, the only way constitutional doctrine is going to change is if we change it. So somebody who, say, would follow precedent with Roe versus Wade as a Court of Appeals judge might act differently as a Supreme Court justice. Okay. Now, it's going to be interesting. I mean, that's just one topic we'll touch on today, which you can jump in on, but here's the bottom line on that. Of all the things presidents do, and there are an awful lot of things they leave behind as a legacy one way or the other, whether Donald Trump wins re-election or not, long after he is gone from the presidency, or even when he finally passes, his legacy in this country will continue through the justices he's appointed. Yes. That will continue. And I think that's right near the top of the list of what
presidents leave as a legacy behind, and there are a ton of them for presidents' legacies, their justices will continue to influence this country.
John Marshall, who was one of the greatest justices in American history, continued Federalist policies long after Democratic Republicans had taken over.
Think about it. So it's an incredibly important thing. So anyway, let's take a break on that note. When we come back, I want to get your take too. We can take some phone calls. If you're on hold, stay there. 737-7587 on whether or not, after the fact now, the summit between the U.S. and North Korea really did nothing for the U.S. or the rest of the world, but ends up basically burnishing the reputation of a horrible, horrible little dictator, that Kim Jong-un, and we're not going to get any verification that he's going to do anything with his nukes, and yet he got a chance to meet with the U.S. president. That's too bad. That guy's a slime bag. We're going to take a break. All right. Now, Kim Jong-un's awful, and we'll get into this. All right. The number is 737-7587. We'll be right back with more right after this.